Meet Reed Lance Rosenthal, rancher, #1 best-selling, award-winning author, and unabashedly, unapologetically on the right side of the outstanding issues of our generation. But don't try to fence him in. Sometimes his positions will surprise you, because Reed is definitely his own man, with his own opinions. You might love him, you might hate him, but you won't be able to stop listening. Step over to the right side with Reed.
Howdy, listeners and viewers, coast to coast, the Gulf to the 51st state, go Alberta, go, and around the globe. Well, my apologies. I've been absent for, I think, 10 or 11 days, which is, I think, 8 days more than I told you I'd be absent. But it's been kind of asses and elbows down here on a whole bunch of fronts, which I'll fill you in at another time. Our water situation is way better than most. Our hay situation, I think, with a little luck, the increase in hay prices, unfortunate for those who have to buy hay, is going to offset to some extent, maybe to a large extent, our decrease in production. On the other hand, we have production, and a lot of the outfits, literally from New Mexico to Montana, have no production this year. Zero. Unbelievable. I mean, it's so bad that some folks came to us and said, we really, we got to have pasture. Our grass is dry. It's gone. We got no water. We worked out a deal where they're going to be over on the mountain side of the ranch. All the springs are dry over there. I mean, it's really unbelievable. I haven't seen that in 25 years. And they're going to haul water every day with their water tanker over to tanks they're going to put over there for their 53 head, actually 50 pairs, 3 bulls. So that'll give you an idea about what's going on with grass and hay and etc. And hay prices have skyrocketed. I've now heard of sales of $400 a ton, which is unbelievable. $340 a ton was a sale last week. And this is 2-year-old hay, okay, which is virtually impossible to find. So there you go. For those of you not in this business and not in this part of the country, you have no idea what I'm talking about, but you will over the next few shows because I'm going to tell you more and more about it. It's kind of fascinating, and it's going to affect your beef prices in all sorts of ways. All right, so this show, as I promised, we are done with our real estate series. I hope you enjoyed it. Go back and listen to it. Housing, rural land, farm and ranch, the whole 9 yards. And we gave you a broad brush overview. Remember, OnTheRightSideRadio.com has all the articles and all the backup to everything I'm bringing you under the various categories. Today's show, which I promised you would be on fraud in the United States, which is rather rampant, is going to be on exactly that. And I'll tell you what, there is so much fraud. There are so many stories to bring you that I'm going to break this into 2 shows. The first is going to acquaint you with the problem and a bunch of examples. All the articles are on the website. They're under the treason, fraud, and corruption link. And you should read them. I mean, I'm just bringing you the tip of the iceberg on all these cases. And then next week, well, actually, hopefully later this week, that's my plan, I'm going to bring you more examples. But more importantly, I'm going to talk about how this occurred and what we're doing to try and stop it. Because it's actually bigger than just human beings being the greedy little pigs that they are and stealing money from others, primarily the taxpayers. There's actually a political and a socialistic and a communistic foundation to what's going on. But we'll talk about that just a tiny bit in this show. The first thing I want to talk about, and then the show after that, always looking ahead, is going to be on election fraud. It's about time. We're only about 4 months away from the midterms. And you have seen what's going on in California. I mean, it's like in your face. It's like, yeah, we're committing fraud. What are you going to do about it? You know, it's, wow. That's all I can say. The DOJ, by the way, is now in Florida. The FBI has now raided these these ballot centers, and we'll see who goes down on this and whether or not the LA Steve Hilton got so many votes as to be running for one of the governor slots against a Democrat. I think the last time a Republican actually got to run for governor in California because of their cockamamie rigged system was a decade or more ago. Might have been 2 decades ago. So good for Steve Hilton. He was too big to rig. But in L.A., Pratt, the Republican, was clearly ahead. And then, those delays in counting, and oh, we just found this box, and oh, these mail-in ballots came in. Anyway, we'll get into that in show after next. It's quite something. And there's a role you can play, by the way. While we're on the topic of elections, again, under elections donations, the link on the ontherightside.radio.com site, and I've also been posting, I don't post on anything. The producers have also been posting on Facebook. Guys, 29X, 35X, 44X, 50X donations. On a 44X, for instance, if you put in $20, you have contributed $880 to these campaigns. I mean, you can't get better bang for your buck. Write a check. Get involved. Get other people motivated to go out and vote in these midterms. All right, so let's start on, number one, I have to bring you the founder's quote. And the founder's quote goes right with this show on fraud. And it's from Benjamin Franklin. And I bet you didn't, I know you've heard this, but I bet you didn't know it came from old Ben, right? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So there you go. All right. Let's talk about Iran just very briefly. Supposedly today, Sunday, the 14th of June, Iran is supposed to sign a peace deal. It's actually a deal to agree to negotiate to sign a future peace deal with some of the parts, like the nuclear part, hanging out there out into the future. I'm going to give you my prognostication, okay? This is all a bunch of BS. I don't think there's going to be any peace deal in reality. I think the Straits of Hormuz may open, but I don't think they'll stay open for long. The United States will drop its blockade, most likely. And Iran will then be getting oil money, so who cares about sanctions? They've evaded sanctions for the last, 30 years, so who cares? And we're going to be right back where we were. So I wouldn't get too complacent. I wouldn't be too ecstatic about what you think the stock market might do with all this peace stuff going on. And I continue to say, and listen, I'm a Trump supporter, okay? And the guy's done a lot of good, and he's doing a lot of good. But on this deal, I've given you the list of the errors I think that he's made, and they're pretty large. Number one, giving these people a ceasefire at all. I mean, when you get somebody in the ropes, you punch harder. And number two, he talks too much. I mean, right now, I start laughing when I hear him on saying, oh, we're so close to an agreement and it's going to be signed tomorrow and blah, 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 blah. And we're going to get all the nuclear dust. And okay, look, let's cut the BS. Let's cut the stock market pump up hype. And let's get down to business. If you want to get rid of Iran as a problem and you want to make them an ally, then you have to remove the government that's in Iran, and you have to do whatever you have to do to get that done. Period. End of story. Otherwise, this story will be continuing with a really bad ending for us, Israel, and the rest of the world. Those are my thoughts on Iran right now. I have more, but we'll temper those for the purposes of this show. All right. Let's talk about fraud, okay? There's human fraud because people are greedy. And a lot of people, not most, but a lot, are dishonest, okay? And they love taking other people's money for stuff, which is not a good thing. And I mean, some of it is just outright theft. I mean, it's not even, if there's such a thing, clever fraud. But there's a bent to what's been going on in the United States, which, by the way, some analysts now estimate could have been as much since 2020. Oh yes, COVID, a nice fraud ingredient. $500 billion. That's $500 billion. That's a quarter of our current annual budget deficit. So, I mean, come on. Uh, Sometimes things are so in your face and so big as to not just be accidents, quote unquote accidents, a couple of people acting here and there out of greed or avarice or whatever. Sometimes it tells you there's a reason. And I've talked to you in the past about the Cloward and Piven theory. You don't have to have a revolution to overthrow capitalism or a republic. You just have to overburden it with entitlements. You have to make it go broke by 1,000 paper cuts. Well, guess what? Barack Obama, I've told you this before too, studied at Columbia University under those very two same professors, Cloward and Piven. And where did all this profligate spending begin? Well, you could blame George Bush, who's also a globalist, for $5 trillion of it wasted over there in Iraq and Afghanistan. But you know what? 30 trillion over that is all Barack Obama or his third term, Sleepy Joe, as Trump would call him. Actually, I think Cadaver Joe is what I would call him. And none of this is an accident. They're trying to kill America and the American taxpayer and the middle class and the republic with 1,000 paper cuts. It is the Cloward Piven theory at work. Because this theft and all these examples I'm going to give you is not just, Sam going over to Sally's house and stealing a bunch of art or whatever. This is money taken by people quite deliberately from the United States Treasury, from your pocket and mine, and from the finances of the government of the United States. Think about that. All right, let's talk about some specifics. And these are going to make you crazy. Remember, the articles on all these, and you really should read them. The articles on all these with the sorted details are on the website, ontherightsideradio.com. And please, check it out. Okay. H-1B visas. That's a whole fraudulent deal in this country that people estimate to be about 1 billion, payoffs and bribes and overstays and NGOs that have been funded by the government, particularly during the Biden and Obama years, taking taxpayer money and then funneling it out to democratic causes and illegal aliens and all sorts of other things. But let me tell you, just so you know, this fraud is universal. In India, they have kind of the equivalent to an H-1B visa. The Indian government has now discovered and found out and disclosed that over 100,000 fraudulent degrees have been granted by 20 Indian universities in medicine and law and engineering, just kind of a few important things. I'm sure all of us have dealt with an Indian from India medical practitioner. Has to make you wonder just a tiny bit. And this has been billions of dollars to India, who, by the way, has some financial and economic problems right now. So my point is, because India doesn't really concern us, my point is this is a universal problem, but only in the United States is as big as it is, as purposeful, as planned, as organized, and done for an ulterior motive. $580 million frauded from folks through dating apps. No, I'm making this up. 580 million. And the fraud is pretty much centered around crypto, right? Crypto. And they've also found out that this is primarily Chinese perpetrators. Gee, you don't think you don't think China would think about the Cloward and Piven theory in terms of bringing down the finances of its greatest rival, the United States, do you? Mm-hmm. Minnesota. I mean, we've heard lots about Minnesota. We're going to get into this in some detail in the next show. But hospice, fake hospice deals, like 50 hospice, and there's videos on the website, by the way. There's several guys, O'Keefe, who used to be with Project Veritas, and Nick Shirley, who's done an exceptional job, have exposed this. They got the tapes, they got the videos. There's a number of them on the website. So, primarily illegal aliens, primarily Somalis, have been setting up like 50 fake hospices in the same building. I mean, they don't even have their own room, never mind. They just have a sign outside Hospice 1, Hospice 2, Hospice 3. It just so happens that it's next to a money transfer center, also owned by Somalis. Wow. Such coincidences. Anyway, they estimate now that the fraud in Minnesota has cost the United States taxpayer under the nose, and I think approval, of Biden/Obama third term and that scumbag Governor Walz and his scumbag Attorney General Ellison and that absolute garbage bag Olan Amar. Oh, it's so pissed me off. $6 to $9 billion just in Minnesota. They've now discovered similar frauds, by the way, many of them by illegal aliens and many of those by Somalis, in at least 11 other states, including Maine. Janet Mills, she was the Democratic governor. It's funny how the same pattern just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. I'm going to bring you more details on this, but they also had fake daycare centers, 50 daycare centers in a house, like with the lawn not even cut, with this, their little plaques outside. Yeah. And, the house is like a one-bedroom house. Okay. And it probably was next to a money wiring center run by Somalis, but it was like half a block away. Well, convenient. And they set up these fake outfits, and then they milked and bilked Minnesota, who was getting federal funds, NGOs who were willing participants because they're firm believers in the Cloward Piven theory, and America bad, them good, of all this money with fake outfits, doing fake business, running fake invoices, and then wiring it back to Somalia or wherever else terrorists and terrorism thrive and survive. The good thing is that Walz and Ellison and our good friend Amar, who really needs to be like booted out of the country for her immigration fraud, that's a whole nother story, are now being investigated by the Department of Justice. So good. We'll see where that goes. Sanctuary states and cities. Now, this is happening really around the country. It's happening even in blue cities like in Texas, Austin, for instance, in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, of all friggin' places, the reddest state in the union. And what these sanctuary states and cities are doing is they're soaking in billions. It could be as much as 33 billion from all these aid programs that were set up under Biden-Obama third term while they had the border closed. They're so concerned. Mr. Mayorkas assured us the border was closed. Maybe it was closed to 40 million illegal aliens, but it was open to the 20 million. Who knows? I mean, it's all subjective, right? Just words. I didn't mean to say that. So the sanctuary states and cities have all these programs. I mean, they have the welfare program. They have the housing program. They have the education program. They have the health program for illegal aliens, non-U.S. citizens, while they're giving them driver's licenses and allowing them to register to vote, no less. And they're being counted, thank you, Joe Biden, Obama, third term, in the census, giving those blue states umpty-ump more congressional seats. It's really quite the plan when you think about it. Anyway, that's 33 plus or minus billion. I mean, chicken feed, right? We just had the SpaceX IPO. So, I mean, this is all like pennies on the dollar. Anyway, there's all sorts of things going on in these sanctuary cities. And some of the money, like for housing illegal aliens, while veterans sleep in the street, yeah, that's going to the buddies of the Democratic Communist administrations in these cities and states who just happen to own hotels, or other places that can get paid triple rents, quadruple rents, so that illegal aliens have housing while American homeless and veterans basically go hungry on the streets. I mean, it warms your heart when you think about it. Then we have, listen, the CMS, which is run by Dr. Oz, the CMS has now put a 6-month freeze on Medicare and home hospice because guess what? They discovered these same types of frauds that have been happening in the states, happening under, who would have guessed, Obama and Biden appointees at the federal level. So there's a 6-month freeze on Medicare and home hospice under certain conditions for certain intended recipients under the, should we say, more liberal illegal alien policies of the former administration. And this has to do with fake patients, making up a patient, and then making up a claim for the patient, and then submitting it to Medicare and to home hospice, and getting a check for doing nothing. It's kind of a variation. It's the American variation of the Somali frauds we just discussed in 11 states, particularly Minnesota. Warms your heart, doesn't it? In L.A., oh, well, I mean, L.A. is a clean little town, isn't it? And it runs good mayor elections, too. In L.A., $70 million. I mean, this is chicken feed, right? This is like 1 minute of national debt. 773 hospice operations and 23 home health outfits have basically lost $70 million in federal funding because, oh my, they don't exist. Imagine that. It's kind of like a dead voter, who gets up out of the grave and votes. Then, of course, we have all the frauds that's connected to COVID and Big Pharma and the jab and the whole friggin' 9 yards. And if YouTube wants to suppress this video, you go right ahead, YouTube. And some of Fauci's crew has been indicted. I don't know what's going on with Fauci. There's rumors that he may be indicted, but on the other hand, there's rumors that the statute of limitations may have passed. How convenient. This is maybe $1 trillion related to COVID between the COVID overspending and over money printing and the graft and kickbacks between and the hiding of the detrimental effects of the injections so that Fauci could get his royalties along with the rest of his slimy NIH crew while they lied to us about the origin of C-19, right? I'm not sure we're ever going to get that money back. Hopefully, individual victims will take the time to research and find, and there's a bunch of attorneys, and they are winning some big cases. There's a bunch of attorneys out there that will take your case gratis. That is contingency. You pay nothing unless they collect for you. And if you have a good case, you'll have a good lawyer. Okay, it's like a whole industry that's sprung up. Thank you, Fauci. I am science, Fauci. Yes. And then we have Medi-Cal. This is like the state mini-me to the federal Obamacare plan. And Medi-Cal, they seem to be missing over the last year or two. It's not much, just $270 million. I mean, chicken feed for all the same reasons that I just went over in these other fraudulent programs. And then we have the J.D. Vance anti-fraud team, okay? And they're actually doing a good job. They have identified another, this is not included in anything I've told you, $6.3 billion, which is unbelievable. $6.3 billion in business grants and loan fraud. A lot of the same elements that I just told you about, like in Minnesota and California and et cetera, except this is done by forming a fake business, which is a pass-through entity, like a sub-S corporation or an LLC. And you create a fake business and you create a fake invoices for the business and fake business plans for the business. I mean, think about that gal in Georgia. I forget her name right now. Well, I'll think about it here in a moment. Who got $2 billion from the Biden administration with a 3-page business plan. You know, Stacy, whatever her name was, ran for governor, right? Yeah. You have no idea how much this pissed me off. I hopefully it pissed you off too. Pisses you off enough to motivate you to send some checks to the campaigns, show up to vote, and drag 10 people in with you in the midterms. All right. Not by the way that there's Republicans that aren't involved in this too. You know, the good old crew from the Uniparty, the rhinos. All right. Of the 6.3 billion that they have preliminarily identified, over and above all this other stuff I've told you about, the J.D. Vance crew, fortunately, has frozen $3 billion before it went out the door. Although I'm sure there is some Democratic judge appointed by either Obama or Biden, like Boasberg, who will say, you can't do that. And so that will be a whole nother deal at more expense to the taxpayer, another of those 1,000 cuts and slices, you know, under the Cloward and Piven plan. Then we have Fannie Mae, right? This is a government outfit. If you remember, Fannie Mae was like at the root, at the foundation, along with Freddie Mac, of the mortgage industry collapse that caused the 2008 great financial disaster. Well, Fannie Mae was kind of taken under the government wing because the government at that time was quasi-private. It was taken under the government wing because the government had to bail them out. Otherwise, a whole bunch of banks and mortgage companies would have gone broke, and then we would have had a bigger problem. Well, it seems that Fannie Mae, Biden, Obama third-term appointees, seems to be a pattern. And fraud investigators who are supposed to be stopping this kind of stuff, who have now all been canned, that'll tell you what a great job they were doing. Billions. They don't know. They're getting into it right now. They were actually, for doing mortgages and doing mortgage packages for banks, okay, where you put a bunch of mortgages together and you sell the bond and you tranche it out to a number of banks. They were getting under the table payments in crypto for coming up with this fraud crap. Wow. That's all I can say is wow. And then you have telehealth. Now I know all you guys have seen ads and all sorts of things. Oh, you know, you don't have to go into a doctor. You just do telehealth. And by the way, this has nothing to do with Simone and her whole group, which is terrific and great telehealth. I've used them myself. Um, but some of these telehealth outfits you want to check out very, very carefully, very carefully. For instance, there's a Christopher Harwood, a doctor, who just pled guilty to $46.2 million in Medicare fraud through telehealth. It seems he was paying doctors to sign off on uh, prescriptions for orthotics and genetic testing, which, of course, was, shall we say, priced rather high in terms of the market. So you may have gotten your orthotic, but the orthotic costs like $5,000. It's kind of like the Navy buying a doorknob, the $5,000 doorknob. Yeah. And that's a whole nother area of fraud is defense procurement. We don't have time to get into that today. We could be here for days. And sometimes there's a nexus, not sometimes, quite often, there's a nexus between this monetary fraud, this Cloward and Piven death by 1,000 paper cuts, and election fraud. For instance, NGOs who got their money from the government, Biden got like 10 billion, 12 billion. Well, I mean, it was a lot of money out the door as he was like, as it was hitting him in his dead ass walking out of the White House, out to his NGO buddies. Much of it was siphoned to the Democratic Party through Act Blue, which is a completely corrupt fundraising outfit for the Democrats. In fact, they were just last week in front of the House Committee investigating election fraud and monetary fraud. And the head guru of Act Blue took the Fifth Amendment. I plead the Fifth 20 times, 20 times during that deposition. What possibly could they be hiding or be worried about? Okay, so the last one is the SNAP program, right? The food stamp program, for better terms. The government has now shut that down temporarily too, because it seems that in the 30, give or take, states that they audited, they found billions of fraud in the SNAP program, kind of along the lines of what we were talking about in all the other places. Fake people, or one person getting 5 SNAP benefits under 5 aliases, or illegal aliens getting U.S. taxpayer money for a U.S. citizen benefit because, shall we say, they had their driver's license from Minnesota or California or Massachusetts. Thank you, Elizabeth Warren. They don't know how much it is yet, but so far they've identified over $3 billion in just the 30 states that complied with audits of their SNAP rolls. However, there's 20 blue states whose AG went to a Democratic, appointed by Obama, judge, and said, this isn't fair. These poor people won't be able to eat. These poor people don't exist. We don't want any non-existent people starving. How cruel can you be? And this Democratic judge has actually halted, can't make this stuff up, has actually halted the United States government shutting down SNAP benefits unless an audit of the SNAP rolls is provided by these 20 blue states. Sounds kind of like voter rolls, too, don't you think? See the nexus? Okay, and then there's a $105 million hospice fraud that it seems gruesome Newsom out there in California was in there. And finally, nobody is safe, right? Even veterans and disabled veterans. Believe it or not, there's 2 contractors. This is Broadway Electric and Cornerstone Contracting, who just pled guilty and agreed to pay a $21.3 million fine. Think about how much money they stole for the fine to get that high. Because, they were making up disabled veteran businesses to get government set-aside money for disabled veterans. Who would have thought? All right. So those folks are some of the, I'm telling you, it's the tip of the iceberg. We could be here for days, be giving you all the stories. I'm going to give you more on the next show, and then we're going to talk very importantly about how things are being found, how they're being investigated, what they're doing to shut it down, and what they're doing to make sure it doesn't happen again. Remember Ben Franklin saying, I think I probably forgot to give you the quote at the beginning of the show. I got so worked up here. Okay. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. That was Ben Franklin. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And boy, that certainly seems apropos with what's going on here, huh? I will see you, this is my best intent, in the next few days with part 2 of Fraud in these United States, Death by 1,000 Paper Cuts. This is Reed Lance Rosenthal on the Right Side Radio and the Cowboys Take. You have a great few days. Keep the wind at your back. We'll talk to you soon.
Please remember, if you've missed any shows, just click on Show Archive and you'll find all of his shows. We look forward to seeing you here again next week for another episode of Reed Lance Rosenthal on the Right Side.